I make an extra plate of food for the thing in my house. Sometimes I pretend I'm making enough food for myself and my wife. Other times I imagine having leftovers for future lunches. I've gone as far as envisioning myself as a glutton who could eat such a massive meal. But I have to stop playing once the food is prepared. It's important to create a meal that offers varying tastes and textures, along with an adequate diversity of nutritional value. At least, that's what it has asked of me. It has also asked that we eat together across the same table so that it can offer its appreciation after the meal. Once the silverware has been set, the creature will appear inside my kitchen nook. Its bipedal form and smaller size allow for it to sit comfortably on a kitchen stool. My small countertop space makes it so that we are no more than several feet apart. When we sit this close, it is hard to ignore how much it looks like her. Once the plates are topped with today's select special, I place each in accordance with their consumer. Most of the time we eat in silence, but sometimes it asks questions. How was your day? Or, can we go visit Mom's grave sometime? Didn't you try Gable's pastries this morning? Asked Mary. Her question jostled me from my space out. I didn't answer quick enough, so she took charge. He's getting pretty good. Glad that the caravan brought more than just stale rations. I didn't get up in time. I'm counting on us catching something if I'm going to eat good today. It was a partial truth. I replaced meeting for breakfast with creating a spider web of tarps to cover the missing sections of roof from the church. Rain and snow were leaking in, causing the remaining interior floors to smell of mildew. Mary followed up quickly. Lucky for you, we are mediocre at fishing. At least the walk here is nice this time of year. Another partial truth. We hadn't caught anything in weeks, and the beginning of winter brought cold air and bare trees, leaving us exposed with no cover from the skies. Our conversation was ended abruptly by the church bells, dropping my heart into my groin and my mind into panic. I yell over the bells. We are still close enough to make it back. Run! Praying it to be a whole truth. We had backtracked enough for the small congregation of buildings to be in view. Our town is split down the middle by a made road no longer in use, with the church located near the center. I'm told that at one point that very road would be filled with automobiles and pedestrians coming from surrounding communities to worship in our place of communion. Now our church bells only function to warn us of the oncoming slaughter. There are only 9 of us currently, so we often scatter and hide across the town in an attempt to reduce simultaneous killings. Mary and I won't have enough time to make it back to our trusted spots. The sewer manhole near our entrance is enticing. It offers mobility and space. But since the creatures punctured openings in the concrete and asphalt to find those who hid there in the past, the underground feels more like a graveyard. We're running out of time. We're almost to the first line of remaining houses. Those that are still standing provide cover, but can be clawed through as if they are made of paper. Not to mention that once they collapse, the debris ends up crushing you. Mary has lowered her voice, though it is still quite loud. Do you think we should go to the church? My silence answered her question, though it felt like we were running out of options. A prior caravan owner shared a plethora of stories. His talent lied in his capacity to make fact and fiction indistinguishable. One such story was that the creatures would spare the lives of the pure if they submitted themselves to the creatures on holy land. The large holes in our church supported that the winged devils had entered, but the bones of deceased left little room for interpretation. As we scan the streets for more places, a boom explodes the air. They are here. Our run steadies to a crouched walk. The sound of the beasts brings some relief. It means that the two of us weren't spotted from the sky. If we had been seen, they would have beelined from the atmosphere and crushed us on impact. Though it's hard to know if they are just toying with us. We ended up across the street from the commercial building turned into a hiding hole. The 4-story office space offered a backup generator from the rear and allowed us to store scavenged goods. We often avoid hiding in places where we live to avoid dying and leaving other survivors with nothing. Let's go inside. My request is interrupted by another boom. This time it's in sight. A beast had rammed itself into the building, leaving a wide outline that faced us. As both of us regain our footing, a violent scream fills my ears. It was Gable. Before I could regain any sense of self, I saw movement from the corner of my eye. It was Mary in a full sprint towards the church. Her dash was sloppy like she was drunk. I followed after her, catching up to her heels. My vision blurred into a tunnel, with the only coherent object being the tall wooden doors of the church. We made our way inside with little resistance. I'm not even sure if any of the beasts saw us. As I fall to my feet, Mary continues inward. My vision slowly returns, and I can now see and feel the soggy carpet that lines the entrance. A tumbled statue of a religious figure remains spread across this foyer, the pieces scattered from my knees to the next doorway into the sanctuary. From inside, Mary whispers, "Our only option now is to pray. Join me." As I configure into a standing posture and make it beside the main room, one of my tarps from earlier that line the roof becomes visible at the foot of the entryway. It stops under my shoes as I step through. Now I can see into the grand room in its entirety. A griffin standing over Mary becomes present. The creature has its paw pushing against her back, keeping her pinned to the ground. Her arms and legs are flailing as she tries to get some kind of footing. But it's painfully clear that the winged monster is exerting no effort. Entire minutes go by as she squirms. Her struggle is seemingly canceled out by my own lack of effort. I remain standing in the doorway, too tense to move. Then her struggle stops, not at the act of the griffin, but her own will. Her arms stop moving, and she centers her head to look at me. "Goodbye." The last words were interrupted by claws shooting out of the paw pressed against her, quickly followed by enough pressure to vaporize her torso into a red mist. My humanity gives out, and I fall to my knees again, this time with my hands folded in prayer. I think back to everything Mary and I did together, every story told, every narrow getaway. Then I feel a soft tug on the back of my jacket. The griffin has gently pulled me into the air with its beak. It is by no means comfortable, but still a relief. It leaps through the ceiling hole, bringing me hundreds of feet into the air. My exhaustion has depleted my adrenaline reserves, so I no longer experience tunnel vision. The velocity we are traveling at through the sky has made the already winter air so cold that I can no longer feel. I close my eyes to be carried away like the story promised. As we make our descent down, its wings are fully extended, allowing me to see everything the creature is. The ground has gotten close, maybe 30 feet at most, and we are slowing rapidly. I can see flat grass ahead, the perfect landing zone, but suddenly my jacket loses its tug, and those 30 feet of space close instantly. My legs shatter on impact, and my arms break like pretzels as I attempt to catch myself. After tumbling multiple times, I end up on my back, looking into the sky. I can see that the griffin has chosen to hover above me, while its smaller offspring arrive to feed. I always kill my houseplants. I've never gotten one to grow beyond the seed, and caused every plant that came to me to leave as rotten material. This time will be different. This time I set reminders on my phone to check the soon-to-be begonia. This time I made sure the pot was prodigious enough. This time I managed both its light and temperature. When it first broke soil, I experienced both exhilaration and paranoia. Now I am officially responsible for what you experience. Sometimes I like to leave you on the windowsill to really show off to the neighbors. Other days I hide you from the drafty cold weathers outside. You've grown to a size that many may miss, but to me you're more whole than a Buddhist reaching Zen or being a part of a balanced breakfast. I now expect great things from you, for you to grow into a beanstalk that puts a hole through my apartment complex into the sky. You will be the mightiest interior decoration to exist. Oh, how arrogant I was to think your growth was exponential. You peaked at a cubic foot before starting to lose color. Your hardy green dissolves into brown. Those leaves function as husks of what they once were. I can still save you. Fresh soil, warmer location, new love. These will bring you back into the limelight. My efforts did not lead to your survival, but I wouldn't say they were in vain. You were my longest lasting houseplant, outlasting all others and even a few goldfish. Even in your end time, I gain comfort in progress. Maybe one day I won't always kill my houseplants. We haven't had a scare like this since the completion of Pac-Man. Now, the end of endless Tetris starts a countdown of the unraveling of the world. The halt of infinite falling blocks leads to a snowballing of impossibilities. The first happening will go almost unnoticed. The cows will come home. The grass will no longer be greener on the other side. The early bird won't catch the worm. Then the ad nations will escalate. Pigs will begin to fly. The moon will be made of cheese. Fish will climb trees. Camels will pass through the eyes of needles. At last, hell will freeze over, and the dead will come back to life. At least, not all will be bad. Maybe you can finally judge a book by its cover. Eat your cake and have it too, and be both a beggar and a chooser. At first, it was an irritable headache, like when you forget to drink water and blame it on too much coffee. But then I could feel heat irradiating from my skull, as if hot air was venting from the mind. My thoughts told me to take a day off and get some rest. Always better than waiting half a day for a doctor's visit. That next night I woke up at the witching hour, between times I've never experienced. My vision felt wider than before. The ground had lost some of its sturdy consistency, making the walk to the bathroom a challenge. Once I stood facing the mirror, The reflection startled me. The face looking back was someone I did not recognize. The nose was all wrong, the eyes no longer had color, and the missing ears? Another day off, perhaps. I don't think my insurance would cover this. Now my skin has hardened into a chalky paste that can be shaped similar to pizza dough that's been kneaded with too much flour. The lack of color has spread to my mouth and tongue, leaving a dulled gray tone. Even if I could walk, I'm still not going to the doctor. That's where people go to die. As a child, my village would warn of the snow angels that hide in the snowy hills. If you fall victim to their tricks and find yourself wandering beyond the view of our members, then your parents will have to wait for the snow to melt to find what is left of you. It isn't foreign for a child to get lost outside in the snow here, especially once that first storm rolls in and the ground bleeds white for months. Now that I'm older, I recollect on the teasing of my peers. Everyone had some kind of happening that they linked to snow angels. My neighbor Brock, who shares my age, still tells his story as often as he can. He swears that after a night of reading past bedtime, that there were rhythmic taps on his bedroom window. When he crept out of bed to investigate, there were powdery white faces floating on the top layer of snow, all staring hungrily at him, their expressions piercing beyond the surface of his skin. Brock has a habit of changing details. Once he told me that they spoke telepathically, pleading to be let inside, that the snow angels asked for a breath of warm air to release their frozen souls. Another time, he said that they spoke softly at a whisper that should not have been audible through the glass. In this version, they warn of a great storm coming to destroy the village, and that if he chooses to sacrifice himself now, that they can stop the storm and spare everyone he loves. I think what eats me the most is that I'll never know what they told my boy. He was so much smarter at that age than I was. He already had that spark in his eyes that leads to important things. My boy had this calm sense about him, like he already had years of experience tethered to his soul. Perhaps the snow angels also saw how special he was.